Mr. Barsamian, thank you very much for this opportunity.
It's always great seeing you, Sargis.
After the Armenian Revolution, you know, there are many talks, ideas on deepening US-Armenian relations. Are there any concrete plans at Trump administration or at Congress to help Armenia to forge stronger democracy, stronger economy, you know, stronger ties with West?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. There's been more attention on Armenia. It's become sort of a very important story in the West. The National Security Advisor, Mr. Bolton, was here in Armenia. And as you know, it's always good for Armenian Americans when we have a divided House and Senate. Mm-hmm. So right now we have a Republican Senate and a Democratic House, which bodes very well for us because now we have friends both in the Republican Party and the Democratic Party who are in leadership, and that usually yields good results for Armenia as the Armenian American community it gets involved in its advocacy work.
By the way, are there any news at Congress related to Armenia?
Well, we have an Armenian genocide bill coming up, so that is being introduced right now in the House, should be introduced shortly. Also tomorrow, my co-chair, Van Krikorian, is testifying before the House Operations Committee on the package for Armenia. So I've always said Armenia needs a very large package, something in the neighborhood of $1 billion. But that package specifically is foreign assistance, usually comes in around a lower number. I believe we're asking for $100 million this time.
You are talking about Armenian genocide. You know, there is a scandal related to Ruben Vardanyan, Russian-Armenian businessman, author of Aurora Prize. This story, will it has some kind of influence on Armenian genocide, international recognition?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, I met Ruben 20 years ago at Harvard when he was studying at Harvard in Boston. I think the story is bogus, to be honest with you. I think you have to ask yourself why, who put this story out there? We should be asking as Armenians, when you see these kind of negative stories, why they're put out there. Secondly, I think you have to ask yourself, you have the Vardanyan family who's done so much for Armenia, has worked tirelessly for Armenia, has invested in Armenia. Wouldn't that be to our adversaries' benefit to discredit him? So I think the story is bogus. I thought it was written very poorly. They don't characterize him as a banker from Russia. They pull in the Armenian tie, which I take personal offense to as an Armenian American. You know, we all are very loyal to our countries of origin. Also, banking laws change. And if you read the article, it said that at the time that these issues were raised, some 15 years ago, the banking laws were different. If you remember in the United States in 2008, we had a financial meltdown. At that time, we had to change our banking laws. Congress passed something called Dodd-Frank. The reason they passed that was to regulate banking. So I think those laws have all changed. And as a result, I think that we have to go very carefully. And to be honest with you, in the 20 years I've watched Ruben Vardanyan, it's nothing but admiration.
You know, we expect some kind of negotiations on Karabakh issue between Armenian and Azerbaijani leaders. What can you say on this?
I think it's something we've said before, and I believe it even more strongly today. When you visit Karabakh, Artsakh, you see young children at schools, you see the city of Stepanakert fully modernized, beautiful sidewalks, streets, cafes. It's up to the people of Karabakh. They have to be at the table. They have to decide what their future looks like. And if they don't have a seat at the negotiating table, then I think no deal will ever hold.
This time you came Armenia from Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. So had you any meetings Tbilisi?
So I came from Georgia. It's the first time I've driven from Georgia. Last time I flew to Georgia in 2006. Very interesting. I think that Georgians and Armenians have a history of wonderful relations, shared values, similar cultures. The meetings I had with parliamentarians and people in government were very positive. I see a lot of good that will come out of the future for Georgia and Armenian relations, even as it relates to the new environment here in Armenia. I think there'll be a lot more tourism, a lot more interaction, coordination with Georgians, so I'm very optimistic on Georgian-Armenian relations. And I see that, you know, the US policy on Armenia changes from time to time, but I think diversified energy routes through Georgia are very important, and I see Iran playing into that equation as well.
Mr. Barsamian, this morning you had a meeting with the Armenian Defense Minister David Tonoyan. You know, at the end of January, Laura K. Cooper, U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, she talked about deepening relations with Armenia in military and in defense and security fields. So, are there any concrete plans at Washington to deepen military security ties with Armenia?
Yes. So Minister Tonoyan, Defense Minister, is heading to the United States soon. He'll be visiting New York and Kansas, and we have a relationship with the Kansas National Guard. And the one thing we all have to be cognizant of is Armenia has done an excellent job with its partnership for peace with NATO, and also working with the Russian military establishment. So balancing those two are very important to me. The part that is quite difficult for us as Armenian Americans is to watch Turkey, a NATO ally, being irresponsible, to be honest with you. Turkey is now currently having operations in Nakhichevan with Azeris in Nakhichevan. That's not NATO, that's Turkey unilaterally deciding to have those relations. You know, the large powers of the world, Russia, the United States and Turkey, are there to keep the peace, not to stir the pot. And my fear is that they will destabilize the region if they don't act within the framework of NATO and take unilateral decisions to get involved in conflicts in the area, whether they be working with ISIS in Syria or whether they be meddling with Azerbaijan or in Nakhichevan.
You said yes when I asked you on deepening US-Armenian relations in military and now security field. So could you please specify?
I mean, I think the best thing the U.S. could do is send, and we've done this, and they've done this before, the U.S. sends over, our government sends over training. So training military officers, inviting military officers to military academies, the Army War College, the Naval Academy, things like that are very helpful. Also, it's very much appreciated that hospital equipment is sent over for field hospitals, kits for soldiers. Those kind of things are very helpful. Also monitoring, you know, declassified monitoring devices on our borders to make sure that Armenia is secure. The best thing that could happen in this region is that Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan all feel secure and don't threaten each other. If this neighborhood is going to grow, they're going to have to grow together economically, but they're only going to do that after there's security guarantees, so that the people of Nagorno-Karabakh, Artsakh feel secure, Azerbaijan, Georgia feel secure, and of course Armenia feels secure in the region.
Mr. Barsamian, here in Yerevan, American ambassadors, U.S. representatives, they are talking about economic cooperation between U.S. and Armenia. Is American business interested in investments, in economic cooperation between two countries? Are there any concrete plans, I mean, in American business to make some kind of investments here in Armenia? So
that I'm very interested in. I've spent a lot of time looking at the investment climate here in Armenia. I was at Ambassador Tracy, Lynn Tracy's swearing in, so I was in Washington just about 10 days ago. So we'll meet with her tomorrow, actually. And we'll have a lengthy discussion about how we can deepen the U.S.-Armenia relationship. There seems to be a lot more excitement around a high-tech investment in Armenia. So we're all spending a lot more time investigating ways of getting high-tech companies to come to Armenia and establish business relations. I think there's another area that Georgia and Armenia can work together, because if it opens up environment for good business, that would be very helpful. So yes, we are talking to the Department of Commerce. By the way, Frank Pallone is now the chairman of Commerce in the House, so that's helpful. He's also co-chairman of the Armenian Caucus. And Lynn Tracy, the new ambassador who just arrived over the past 2 weeks, we'll have those discussions with her and with her attachés.
Maybe last question. In last autumn, we had some kind of speculations on Trump-Pashinyan possible meeting. So have you any news on this, maybe on possible?
I mean, I would welcome it. I think what happens is we get into the political season and things get a little busier. You know, the Armenian Americans deserve to call on the president to have a courtesy visit to the White House. And I think President Trump should, you know, welcome the Armenian Armenian president to the White House. It's something that's been done before. The last president, I believe, that welcomed an Armenian president was Bill Clinton. And I think it's time now to welcome Prime Minister Pashinyan to Washington.
Thank you very much for this interview,
My
sir.
pleasure.